Hi, I'm David Yang, and we're here with another alumni story. Today, I'm lucky to have Sarah Zinger. Sarah was a student in the 2015 January class, and then also later a fellow. So, thank you for coming, Sarah. It's great to have you back.
Yes, thank you for having me, David.
Why don't we get started with, tell us a little bit about what you're doing now.
Sure. So right now I work as a software engineer at a company called Yuzu.
Okay.
And we make a educational platform for students in college at the moment. And so right now we're focused on an e-reader and some other interesting things.
Okay. I have so many things I want to get in today that I'm interested about, that I want to talk to you about. But one thing I like to start with is, what got you into coding? Why did you get excited about it to begin with?
Sure. So I have sort of a non-traditional path. I was previously working as a social worker for a few years, and it's stressful work, and you need something to kind of get your mind off work at the end of the day. And I thought, I'm going to learn a little bit of HTML and CSS. A friend of mine, we had decided to do an online course together just to sort of see if we could play around with it. And my initial motivation was just to make some simple websites for nonprofits, because some of the groups I was working with didn't have websites, and I thought, yeah, that'd be a fun project. And I really liked it. I got really into it, and eventually found myself applying to boot camps and changing careers, and ended up at Fullstack.
The rest is history.
Yeah.
I'm always curious to know, what is that moment where you feel this is like, wow, this is more than just a hobby? Or
Yeah. I think to some extent it was a leap of faith. I wasn't super sure if it was going to work out or not, but I think I had really great support along the way, and I just found like this is so fun, and I didn't realize how accessible it was and how quickly you could go from learning, knowing almost nothing about computer science to really building something at least semi-useful. And it didn't take decades, right? It didn't take a PhD, and these were all sort of misconceptions I had about programming. And I think just every project I built was sort of like, oh wow, I could do that. Like it's not going to be Google, but it's going to be awesome for me. And
it's not going to be Google, but
yeah, it's going to be
that's
great.
A pretty high bar to set for yourself. It's not going to be the most advanced technology company man has ever created, but it'll be somewhere around there. So I'm curious the timeline between your first piece of code and then what are some of the major milestones you remember along the way?
Sure. So I guess before Fullstack, I remember making like this really ugly, just toy game that was like learning about different women in history. And it was the first thing that I had like done where there wasn't like a tutorial involved. It wasn't like, okay, make this and here's a step-by-step process, but instead just kind of like make a thing was the assignment basically. And so it was super awesome to be like, what would be cool would be like this game. And I like had sketched it out and made it, and it was really fun. And that was pretty exciting. And then.
And this was how long after you started programming?
This was maybe a couple months.
Mm-hmm.
And there's very little JavaScript. It was all jQuery, and I had no idea what was happening under the hood. And that was sort of a motivation to come to Fullstack, to be like, what is jQuery? What is this function stuff going on in JavaScript? Like, I can kind of get it to work by looking at Stack Overflow, but I don't really know what's happening.
Okay.
And so that was a cool moment, and definitely at Fullstack, like getting through Stack Store felt like a really big achievement. It's one of the first projects where you're again sort of, here's what we want to see. Go ahead and do it however you see fit. And again, was sort of like that test of like, is this real? Like, is this an actual thing that I know? And sort of solidifying like your skills, but also your confidence in your own skills to be able to go out and create things.
So I'm curious to kind of hear your thoughts on Fullstack. What were some of the things that are most challenging about it?
I think at Fullstack and elsewhere, whenever you're programming, really, I think there's this moment of, I have no idea how this works. I don't know even really what to Google. Like, I'm not really sure. and just you can get a lot of self-doubt and really convince yourself that like it's beyond your capabilities. And it's so awesome how like every time I hit that wall, it's like, no, not at all. And then like 2 days later, 2 weeks later, it's like, this was something that I could learn, or at least get a lot closer to learning than I was previously. And I think there were like basic understandings of like what happened when you typed in, you know, a website, you know, into your browser, and what happens under the hood was so mysterious for so long that I remember feeling like just really anxious about that, and then and then just like suddenly being like, okay, I have like at least a really broad idea of how this is happening, and it really just put everything into perspective, and suddenly like routes made sense, and so many things sort of came together. It was really cool.
So I get that sense a lot, is that there's this meta improvement. So you learn specific things, but there's this meta improvement where you feel different about computer challenges. What, like when you get a challenge now, what are some of, how do you handle it differently, or how do you compare how you handle that now to how you used to handle it?
Yeah, I don't know if it's just like the social worker in me, but I'm just so obsessed with what's sort of the emotional response, and I think I used to feel a lot more anxiety and just like fear and all these things, and now it's more just kind of excitement and maybe frustration, if I'm honest, right? Like, but you know, I have no fear that I'm not going to be able to learn something. You know, it's most of the things that I'm doing are fairly well-tread territory, right? And somebody else has figured this out, and even if they haven't, it's still there, you know. And we have such a great. I guess my go-to response is now like, how do I ask for help? What's the best way, right? And it might just be looking at Stack Overflow. It might be talking to a colleague. It might be talking to people at Fullstack, from, you know, friends that I have, and just realizing that the resources are out there. You just gotta know where to look.
What was the last bug or frustrating thing you've tackled?
Trying to think. This one doesn't have a satisfying ending, but I did spend like a very long time thinking about a linter. At work we have this really cool architecture where all of our work is are in like unique packages that are NPM packages, right? And so some of them are shared between 2 different clients that we have. Okay. And one is, and then some are just like unique to like just the web app or just the Windows app.
Oh, interesting.
And so finding a way to lint those NPM packages was strangely challenging, right? Because it became a question of like, I want to lint my node packages, but not all the node modules. I don't want to lint the node modules within the node modules. I don't want to lint those dependencies. And so ESLint is not really super designed yet for that method, and it just was, it ended up being sort of an NPM bug. Anyway, it's just sort of an ongoing thing. Okay. It was like one of my first challenges at work, and continued for many months, and sort of one of those most basic things where you're like, we have to be able to lint our own stuff. But yeah, that was one of the main challenges. And basically I had my colleagues really help me out and really, you know, led the way on that one.
So one thing I wanted to ask you about is probably today one of my favorite Stackathon projects. You and Seema built something called the Bechdel. Is that correct? And for people who are watching, the Bechdel is, maybe you can give an explanation of what the Bechdel test is and what the Bechdel did.
Yeah, those, it's definitely one of my favorite projects. We had a short hackathon of a couple days, and we decided it would be really fun to answer this challenge with thinking about like, so the premise is that the Bechdel test is a test that you can do for any movie to see, you know, what is the representation of women in that movie. And so a movie will pass the Bechdel test if there are 2 women who talk to each other about something besides a man. and they have to have names. And it's a funny little
so
thing.
they can't be woman number one in the cast credits.
Yeah, being like, where's the bathroom, right? That wouldn't count.
Okay.
And so it's a funny little test because so many movies don't pass that test. And
really,
yeah,
it's incredible to me that this test is actually.
Yeah, it's a weird phenomenon, right? And probably speaks to like the need for more women writers and directors and whatever. And not that a movie is bad if it doesn't pass it, or a movie is good if it does, right? But just sort of like an interesting anecdote that was created by a comic named Alison Bechdel. So that's where it takes its name. And so I wanted to see like, is there a way that we could, figure this out with computers without people having to watch a movie first to decide, does it or does it not pass? And so we made a simple website that would scrape the internet for movie scripts and then sort of try to parse those movie scripts, see who, when are characters speaking, what are their names, and then try to run those character names through an API that could tell us, hey, is this a woman, is this a man? What are sort of our estimations of that? How certain are we in that? And then sort of graphically represent, the communication between men and women in the movie with each other. And so, yeah, it's pretty fun. You can put in most movies and it'll just try to represent something for you, and it's really fun.
So can you give us an example of a movie that people would think passes the Bechdel test but doesn't, and vice versa?
Well, I mean, it's always in a great dispute, right? Sometimes you'll have characters like, is Wally a guy or a girl? Like, I don't know, and things like that. So I don't want to totally speculate too much, but I think most movies that are like Lord of the Rings, for example, like I think has a few women in it, but I'm not sure if any of those women talk to each other, right? And I love Lord of the Rings, like nothing wrong with it.
I wonder, Arwen and getting too nerdy, but Arwen and Eowyn never talk.
I don't think so, right? And so that's like, and something funny about the Bechdelator is that it thinks that the name Mary, which is one of the hobbits, is a woman's name, and so it might say that it passes the test, even when in fact it doesn't. So it's kind of fun to see how computers can go.
But you were telling me a movie that passes that I thought would never pass. Was this like Alien or something, or?
Oh, right. So in the comic, the original comic, they said the last movie I saw was Alien, right? And they were saying that does pass.
Who's it? So Ridley, who does she talk to that?
Honestly, I haven't seen it.
Okay,
It's like I saw it like 10 years ago or something.
Okay. All right, and can people still check this out? Is it still online, or?
Yeah. They can go to bechdelator.com, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so after you graduated from Fullstack, what was the what was your criteria for what you're looking for, and what made you choose working at Yuzu?
So I knew I wanted to, if I could, find sort of my three things are basically like I want to work with great people that I, could really work and see as a team, and people that I'd love to see every day. I was looking for innovative technologies, things that excited me, and so, and I wanted to work on, ideally, some kind of project that I felt like had a real purpose, really felt driven by some kind of mission. I was pretty open-minded about what that mission meant, but I wanted to feel like I was going to work every day for a real cause, and I think I found all three, and it was really awesome. I was sort of expecting to compromise a little bit, and really feel super happy that I have a great team. I love learning React and ES6. They're super cool challenges, and I'm happy to be working in the education space. It's really cool. There's lots of opportunity there.
Let me ask you if you've seen any examples of this, or in your own life maybe, is that one thing I find personally very exciting about working at Fullstack is that we get to interact with some people who are, I would say, like double or triple skilled, right? Because like I came up with computers as my thing, and nothing else was my thing. But you came up, and you believed in social work. It was something you were passionate about, and now you're also you have that background and computer programming. Do you ever think about incorporating it back into your previous life, or incorporating your previous life into programming? And any other stories that you might be able to share about that intersection?
I mean, I doubt. First off, I don't think that you're probably just computers. I bet there are secret skills that we won't share in the video. But I definitely feel really passionate that there's so much work to be done in the nonprofit realm. I think there are so many communities that are really underserved, and I really was just so burnt out on the fact that a fax machine working or not could be the success of my client. And I felt like there are so many simple things that could be done to really improve that space with technology. And so I am hoping to someday circle back and sort of unite those interests. But it is something that I, to some degree, feel like I'm still connected with. I work with Women Who Code, which is a nonprofit that has meetups regularly here in New York, and I help with their monthly algorithms workshops, and it's really fun, and I feel like I'm sort of going back to those roots that I have of sort of helping other people and helping them learn and grow and be the kinds of people that they want to be. And so, yeah, I feel like I haven't really lost it, and I'm always impressed by how much communication plays such a huge role in working on any tech project. I think obviously you want to know the skills and the latest, greatest technologies, but being able to say, hearing what somebody's needs are and processing that and trying to come up with a solution, which is what I was doing, for so long. It's pretty similar. Really, it's remarkable how well they overlap.
Okay, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, just a few more questions. One, I hear about you all the time in the New York tech scene. You're always giving talks or at events. What's the last talk you gave, and how do you get so connected to the tech scene?
Well, I don't know. It's probably. I don't know.
Maybe exaggerating.
Yeah, I think that's like maybe overstating it, but I do think that the general tech community here is super welcoming, especially for beginners. You don't have to be in the space for long to be able to give a talk, and I think very few things are as great motivators to learn about a technology than to give a talk about it, right?
Yeah.
And so Seema and I presented the Bechdel at Queens.js a few months ago, maybe in the spring, I guess, and that was really fun. Tomorrow I'm going to be giving a very casual talk to some students at Fordham in the computer science department to help them sort of see and learn about asynchronous programming in JavaScript.
Oh, that's really cool. Is it Fordham students who are studying computer science, or?
Yeah, I think they're all sort of debating whether they want to major or not, and so sort of varying levels of experience, but I'm sure a lot of them have sort of dabbled with JavaScript, and it could be fun to just sort of talk a little bit, again, like what's going on behind the hood and what sort of resources are out there to help with that.
That's very cool.
Yes.
So I understand that you recently were married a few months ago, and that your husband is also a programmer.
Right, yeah.
Have you worked on anything together yet, or is that something you want to keep separate out of your personal?
Well, we definitely want to work together on more. I think we haven't really come up with the next great thing that we want to do. I think we worked a little bit together on our wedding website, and that was fun.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. I remember working on my wedding website, and my wife giving me directions, and me not being able to follow them because she wanted things. I was like, I can't code that in the 5 minutes I have a day to do it.
Well, she should learn programming.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe she could be a Fullstack student.
Yeah.
And last question I'd love to ask you is, what was your favorite memory about your time at Fullstack?
I guess I really enjoyed board game nights. I feel like that was it's just been so fun. There are so many great people here.
What's your favorite board game?
I think I'd have to choose The Resistance, which is a game of deception, and I'm a really good liar.
Oh, really?
So I bring it, yeah.
Okay, awesome. That's very cool. All right, Sarah, thank you so much for coming here.
Thanks.
I'd love if you want to share with people where they could find you, or where you are on Twitter, or the other places on the internet.
I believe my Twitter handle is Sarah's Zingers.
That's a great Twitter handle, Sarah's Zingers.
But I changed it recently, so I'm not sure if that's what I actually changed it to. And I just revamped my personal website, so it's at sarahzinger.com. There's not much there, but check it out.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Sarah. It was great having you in, and great talking to you again.
Good talking to you too, David.